For everybody that has joined us tonight, we thank you so much for making time with us tonight. It's been a couple weeks. We took a little break, but me, Chris, and Drew are back, and we have a special guest with us tonight, our man, Michael Bauer from Dynasty Rewind. My man, what's going up? What's going on? How you doing?
Gentlemen, thank you so much for having me here. It's always an honor to be on with the Fantasy and Frames crew. Happy to be here. And again, thank you. I appreciate it.
Dude, we're so lucky to have you tonight. So fantastic. Looking forward to it. Jorge, Tyler, been a while, fellas. How y'all doing?
Man, I couldn't be better.
Yeah, I'm ready to go. We just had a great show on Dynasty 365 with Stacey Perez, and I believe there was a request by Mr. Rewind CEO himself, or Tyler Heil, to take off his shirt during the draft. So let's go, buddy. We don't got all night. Let's do this.
No, I don't want to get Mike to have a divorce or something, so I'll keep it on.
I don't want to get a divorce tonight, so I too am fortunate that you're keeping your shirt on. But, Michael, man, it's so great to have you. So the first thing I want to ask you is, you're one of these guys that you've been in this industry for a while. Dynasty Rewind doing great show to listen to. Subscribe to that if you haven't yet. But I wanted to ask you a couple questions. First off, man, what made you fall in love with fantasy football, and more specifically, the Dynasty format?
Yeah, fantasy, believe it or not, my dad was the one that pushed me into it. He said, hey, you think you know everything about football. Why don't you play this fantasy football that I heard so much about? So I did. And then, the season was over. You just kind of always felt like you were missing out on something. You had that great roster, and you hate to see it go because you would always be thinking about, if I just did this or that and I had these players still, it could be so much better next year. And I found out about Dynasty. And the rest is kind of history. We're coming up on our, 2024? Yeah, so we're coming up on our 5-year anniversary in a couple months. Hard to believe that it's been that long. But May, it'll be 5 years of the Dynasty Rewind.
What a huge milestone.
Congratulations.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
Thank you.
So now I have to ask you the question. Dynasty is what you do on a weekly basis with your show, but I need to know, what's your favorite format outside of Dynasty? You have to choose a second one.
C2C. Yeah.
Oh, Campus to Ken.
Yeah, easily C2C.
Chris's night.
If you're asking me to join a league and it's not a C2C from here on out, I'm not interested. You know what, John? I don't want to hear from you, man. Talk about circling the wagons with somebody when it comes to trading. You will spend 4 days trading with John McGlynn, and the trade ends up being what the initial trade offer was anyway, because it's the easiest way to make it stop. C2C, I love it. I actually, if it was up to me, I would just talk about college and college prospects all the time. That is my jam, as the youths like to say. But for the purpose of the algorithm and YouTube, we stick to generally Dynasty format and content, talking about that stuff. So, because C2C is still kind of a niche. It's not as big as myself and Chris obviously would like it to be.
Yeah, I'm a salary cap Dynasty guy myself. So I understand the niche qualities of loving something that not many people love. But speaking of your show, Dynasty Rewind, go ahead and recap a couple of these last few episodes that you've done. What you guys been going over lately?
Well, I could go back to our Spotify for podcasters. By the way, if you ever want to start a podcast, use Spotify for podcasters. I'm not being paid to say that, but once you get the followers and stuff like that, they do monetize you. So the episode that came out today was Dynasty trade targets for every position. So Nate and I each had a trade target, obviously quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. And then Friday is going to be buy low stashes to buy now. So you get to hear me talk about Jalen Hyatt. And then Monday's episode is going to be players to avoid and sell at all costs. And of course, not to push it too much, but if you head over to our Patreon, Nate and I do a show every week. We got about 3 shows a week right now. It usually picks up more in season, because we do have some best ball and stuff over there like that. So that's what we got going on currently. And then YouTube, we have 5 days a week right now. And then the other 2 episodes that are dropping are on the YouTube. They're not on the podcast feed, but right now we're doing Mock Draft Monday. That was this past week. I think that'll be a weekly thing, probably until after the draft for a while. So you can look forward to that. You can mock with the Frames crew Monday morning at 8 a.m. You could come see a Dynasty Rewind mock. I think we're starting to do 5-round mocks probably this upcoming week.
Dude, That's awesome. Love that. So before we go ahead and get into this mock draft that we planned tonight, this 3-round SuperFlex, our second one of the offseason, let's go around the frames real quick. And first thing I want to start off with is this. The NFL Combine is coming up this weekend. Let's go around the frames. Mike, I want to ask you first, what are you most excited about? Who are you most excited to see perform at the Combine this weekend? Who are you hoping breaks out? Who are you going to think might bust a little bit? Just things like that.
So personally, I love the offensive lineman drills the most. I just love watching those big guys try to move. But I'm hoping that Tez Walker can have a better combine than he had Senior Bowl. And you know what? The Senior Bowl, I understand that his stock went down. It wasn't all his fault. There needs to be some reevaluation of how the Senior Bowl is done. And here's why. You have these guys, they have a good week of practice, and then they dip. They don't want to have a bad game. They don't want to get hurt. I get that. Now you had a team, the one that Tez Walker was on, only 3 healthy wide receivers. The dude's gassed. He's out there. He's running every route. He's running sprints for 40 minutes or 30 minutes, however long they had it. He's dropping balls out there. He was tired. I get it. So they need to have some reserves in, maybe some guys that played in the Shrine Bowl or the Hula Bowl, something like that. Just some guys that can come up and kind of get in there as well. But I'm hoping that Tez Walker is a riser. And I'd love to see Cody Schrader do some drills as well. And also, hey, quarterbacks, if you're going to get paid to throw the ball, throw at the combine.
Chris,
Love you too, John.
what you looking forward to, man? Combine.
I just want to see the running back unit as a whole. I want to see them all go through the drills to find which ones are going to stand out above the class, because as the consensus is right now, there's really no running backs going in the first round of rookie draft. So being able to pinpoint that one guy that I can grab and maybe at the back end of the first, that's what I'm looking forward to. So give me the running backs.
Tyler?
Honestly, it's kind of a cop-out answer, but I want to see a lot of these wide receivers run this 40. From the film that I've watched, guys like Brian Thomas, Troy Franklin, they can fly. I want to see if they can get in those mid to low 4.3s because they were moving on film. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah. Jorge, and then I'm going to switch it up for you a little bit, Drew. Go ahead. What do you look forward to the Combine?
I'm with Chris here. I want to see the running backs. I want to see Jalen Wright just dominate every single metric that he needs to dominate this year, because he's, spoiler alert, over on our rookie rankings over at Fantasy and Frames. He's my RB2. I just love him so much. So I just want to see that justified at the Combine this week.
And Drew, let's switch it up. Who do you think has the most to prove at the Combine this coming weekend?
Most to prove? I guess the quarterbacks that are actually going to throw the ball, because I mean the guys that the guys that I'd like to see, sounds like we're not going to get to see. So I guess the quarterbacks that are actually going to throw the ball kind of gives them a chance to put on a show and put some spotlight on the guys that are actually tossing the ball.
Like
Yeah,
Michael
man.
Penix, not penis, but Penix.
Yeah, that's been my running joke all off season, and I apologize for my juvenile humor. But Jorge, you did it, not me tonight. So you're the boss. If you're approving of it, then I'm just going to go ahead and keep rolling.
Oh yeah, it's balls to the wall. Get it?
Oh yeah, I get it. Nice stuff. So one more thing I want to ask is there are rumors circulating tonight and today on social media that Justin Fields to the Atlanta Falcons may be a thing that's happening. So, Michael, I need to ask you really quickly, is this smoke and mirrors, or do you think this is something that is actually in the works?
Well, the girl I dated after high school, Katie, said she was never going to break up with me, and I'm married to someone named Jenna. So it's all smoke and mirrors until we see it happen. It has not yet happened. And people put a lot of thought into narratives that they see on Twitter. Like you guys were talking about the running back class and how it's bad. No, the running back class is not bad. I think I figured out the reason why everyone says the running back class is bad, and that's because of the fact that we don't have the bona fide running back one like we did last year with Bijan Robinson. So us being impatient, we don't want to wait until the NFL draft tells us who the running back one is. But until I see Justin Fields in an Atlanta Falcons uniform, I'm not going to believe it. I'm just not. However, for his sake, I hope he gets that fresh start, be it in Atlanta, be it in. I had heard that there was some rumors with Pittsburgh. That seems a little bit less likely, to be honest with you. But I would love that in Atlanta. You get rid of Arthur Smith, you get a better quarterback in there, wheels up. I'm still going to hate Drake London, though.
Oh, man.
Because I can.
I was with you all the way to the end, and you're just right in the heart.
Sorry, boy. Sorry.
So yeah, there is a lot of things going on. Also seeing people throw it around tonight on social media is like, is Justin Fields that much better than Desmond Ritter? I will
Yes.
answer that for you. Yes, absolutely.
God, yeah.
He is
My
better than
Lord.
Desmond Ritter. This is the stupidest thing I've heard all week. But speaking of things that are not stupid, ladies and gentlemen, if you head over to fantasydata.com and use the promo code Fantasy and Friends, you can get 20% off of your monthly subscription to some of the most useful fantasy football data and metrics out there to help you become a better content creator or fantasy football player. Once again, fantasydata.com, 20% off using the code Fantasy and Frames. Guys, let's get into why we are here tonight. We want to go ahead and bless these people with our second rookie mock draft of the season. We're planning to go super flex to make these rules clear. A half point per reception for tight ends. So there's a slight tight end premium as well. But ultimately, what we want to do is just kind of give people a little bit of enlightenment and ready to go on that. So you guys ready to go?
Let's do it.
All right. So starting off on the clock, we have our man Shia LaBeouf, and he is sitting there, and we are
off. Yeah.
He starts off. Shocker.
Here. Well, good start.
Reach. This next pick, I mean, it's pretty. I'm not going to say it's easy. Jaden Daniels has built up quite the reputation for himself over the past month or past, I would say, 5 months to possibly either be that QB1 for some, the elite rushing upside. But I'm going to take the guy here. Some call him marvelous. Some call him Maserati. I call him moped because he's just so much fun. And that's Marvin Harrison. So Marvin Harrison, wide receiver 1 for me, should be wide receiver 1 for you as well. But at the 102, easy pick.
No one sets up a player like you, Chris. I just got to say.
Tyler, let's go ahead and ask the question. What's the speculation behind the Jaden Daniels versus Drake May thing in your mind? I wasn't going to ask Jorge, but he's not completely out on Drake May. So I want to ask someone who's a little less than biased on this. Tell me why people might be buying into the Jaden Daniels thing like we just saw at 1-3.
I think people are buying into the Jaden Daniels just because of his season, and everyone is always chasing that fantasy football cheat code. They see athleticism on a quarterback, and they just get all hot and bothered. And they're like, "Oh, this guy is going to run for 1,000 yards and pass for 3,500 yards, just like Jalen Hurts." Whereas maybe, those guys aren't as prolific as you think they are. There's not as many of them as you think there are, especially when a guy is built like Jaden Daniels. So that is absolutely the reason why people are so into Jaden Daniels right now. He won the Heisman and he ran for, I think it was almost 1,200 yards. So everyone's chasing that. They're chasing the dragon on the fantasy football cheat code.
Yeah, and Mike, I want to ask you. You just took Drake May at 104 after we were just having this discussion. Did you get your guy at 104, or do you prefer Daniels?
No, I prefer Drake May. If I was at the 103, I would have taken Drake May. And Jaden Daniels, if you look at his stats over his collegiate career, 5 years, really only had one spectacular year, and this last year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm concerned, and I understand people talk about his rushing upside and all that stuff. That's great. But the way he runs concerns me. He does not protect himself well enough. He leaves himself open and susceptible to some really big hits. You know who else did that too that I was concerned about? Matt Corral. The guy was CTE waiting to happen, and if Jaden Daniels keeps running the way that he does, it's going to be the same thing. He's a smaller frame guy. He takes way too many big hits. Not going to lie, though, because it's a half-point tight end PPR, tight end premium, it was between Drake May and Brock Bowers at the 104 there for me. In reality, I could have picked a different draft spot when I came into the draft. If I had the 104 and I didn't like it, I would have traded back a spot or two, try to get extra capital and get Brock Bowers. So if you could turn the 104 into Brock Bowers and an additional second-round pick, I'm all about that.
Yeah, and I see we had at the 107, we had Roma Dunze, 108, Tyler Brick in my heart. I was trying to see if I can get Brian Thomas at the 109. That couldn't happen. I think Tyler had a little insider information that he was trying to roll with. But at the 109, guys, I'm going to have some fun. I'm going to go ahead and explain why. Let's go ahead and take this third QB off the board with J.J. McCarthy. This is just a guy that I think ultimately at the combine this weekend is going to see his stock rise. If he throws, I think he's probably going to impress some people. Now, I will say this. Is there a chance there might be a little Zach Wilson syndrome going on right here based off of the fact that he is a young guy, could show off a big arm, has some athleticism? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, with J.J. McCarthy, without a landing spot right now, it's a little murky to know. But I think in a super flex format like this, having a guy that is almost surely going to go in the first round is a safe bet here at the 109. The 110, Adumbly picked Troy Franklin. So far, 5 receivers off the board in the first round. There's no shocker there with that, huh, Chris?
No shocker at all. From our first mock in January till now, it's been quarterback, wide receiver heavy, mixed with Brock Bowers, pretty much right there in the middle. So far, other than the J.J. McCarthy pick, it's been pretty chalk.
Well, until Jorge decided to throw a flying ointment here. Jorge, you went ahead and you did the thing, my man. Go ahead. Ladd McConkey, 111. Talk us into it.
Look, he plays predominantly on the outside. His yards per route run last year, 3.62. That's right below the league neighbors, right above Troy Franklin. Yes, the passing volume wasn't there. Georgia didn't really pass the ball a lot. So we're really going off of efficiency and practice reports. We saw at the Senior Bowl him just get tons of separation against any cornerback who he lined up against. Again, I'm thinking about this from a fantasy perspective. You get him in a situation where you have an established environment. He's not going to be the savior wide receiver of a team. He's not going to be your Neighbors or your Harrison. So I think the likelihood that he lands in the spot that's probably well established with offensive weapons and a quarterback can only help with his with his upside. So I'm definitely going to shoot for him there. And again, there's other wide receivers out there that I was thinking about, but I just like what he does efficiency wise, which is why I took him at the 111.
All right, and so at the 112, we had time run out right here. So I'm going to say here late in this first round, I'm going to go ahead and go with my rankings, and I'm going to go with a guy who I think is going to be a proven separator in the league. There's some concerns with Keon Coleman. He has the great size. He has the great X upside. But at the end of the day, I just think that Xavier Worthy projects better, especially with where the league is going at this point. So to recap that first round, we had Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, Malik Neighbors, Brock Bowers, Roma Dunze, Brian Thomas, J.J. McCarthy, Troy Franklin, Ladd McConkey, and Xavier Worthy rounding out that first round. Drew, I have to ask you, any real shockers in that first round for you?
No, not too much. It was pretty chalk. I mean, my top 10 players went off the board with the first 10 picks. I've got Ladd down a little bit farther, but he's in the same tier as Xavier Worthy and a bunch of guys that haven't been picked yet. So, I mean, even though it wasn't in the order I would have taken it, Ladd's in the tier of guys that we're at this point. So even that one's not a big shocker to me. So no, I think it's pretty chalk for the most part.
And starting off that second round, Shia LaBeouf, by the way, loved you in Even Stevens. I will ram that joke home all night. Keon Coleman at the top of the second round. Guys, how important, let's go ahead and ask you, Tyler, how important is Keon's performance at the combine this weekend for determining his draft stock? Because the chatter right now is that he's not much of a separator. Can he do something good for his stock this weekend? Is it boom or bust at the combine or what?
I don't know if the combine is going to affect him too much. I mean, he just needs to go out there and have a solid performance, not drop a bunch of balls in the gauntlet and run some decent times, which I think we all know he's going to. He's an athletic guy. He does really well when he's just running straight down the field. Some of his routes aren't ideal, so it would be nice to see him show some change of direction there in the short shuttle and the 3-cone. But overall, I don't think he's really going to kill himself at the combine, barring the outlier times where he just runs a 4.8 for some ungodly reason.
Right. And so we have Chris Battistel here at the 202. He's currently going through a flash freeze watch up in Canada right now. So we don't know if he's going to make this pick right now, but if he doesn't, I mean, I think it's about time we might have to see a running back come off the board right here, because I think there are some couple guys who might be interesting, and he did it. He went with Braylon Allen at the top of the second round. So, Chris, Braylon Allen being your RB1, talk about it.
Yep.
Why is he your guy at the top?
Just everything I've watched him do at Wisconsin from when he entered that program, what he did as a freshman at a very young age, little bit of, he's got a good amount of tread on the tires. He's coming into the NFL. Again, 20 years old, solid, powerful, solid 10-yard split, 1.49 second 10-yard split. So he's going to be able to get that burst to hit that hole. He doesn't have that breakaway speed. He's going to get caught by defenders quite a bit. Even he did that at the collegiate level. It's going to happen in the NFL. So that's where the class kind of struggles a little bit at the top end. Some of these guys missed that top end speed. You got Jonathan Brooks there, who just went right after Braylon Allen. But for me, what he was able to do at a young age, the young breakout, 2 seasons over there, 2,500 yards, over 20 touchdowns. He doesn't have that pass catching profile that you want from your 3-down fantasy running back, but he checks all the boxes for me other than the receiving box. So Braylon Allen is my RB1.
Yeah, and Jorge, I wanted to ask you, because you had mentioned a little bit different of an RB2 per the rest of the consensus right now. So Jorge, who is your RB1 right now in this class?
It's Trey Benson. One of the things we have to take into consideration when we're talking about fantasy is what is the likelihood that your running back is going to get on the field. I don't want to spoil a couple other running backs that I'm targeting in the later rounds here, but you look at Trey Benson, really good pass blocker. That's going to keep you on the field. That's going to give you opportunities. When you look at his breakaway run percentage, it's near the tops of all the running backs in the class. His yards after contact per attempt, again, right at the top. He checks all the boxes in terms of being able to give you the big plays, give you the fantasy output. And that's what I want with these high value picks or high draft picks.
And it's so funny because I've heard 3 different answers tonight, because my RB1 is Jonathan Brooks right now. I know he's going to miss a good chunk of this first season, but I'm looking at a guy when I see him on film. I think he's the most explosive back in this draft personally, and I like the way he moves inside of the hole to make himself a little bit of space here and there. I also had a similar thing last year with Tyjae Spears, where I saw a guy who moved well whenever he was inside of a hole. So, pause. So for that, I'm just going to go ahead. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm a big Jonathan Brooks guy because I think he has a lot of upside for the league. So to recap so far in this second round, as Drew gets ready to make his pick, Keon Coleman went at the top of the second. Then a bit of a running back run with Braylon Allen, Jonathan Brooks, and Trey Benson, followed by Rome Wilson at the 205 and A.D. Mitchell at the 206. So I guess the guy who has probably been the biggest riser since the Senior Bowl and has kind of held steady since then has been Roman Wilson. So, Michael, ultimately with the combine this weekend, and if he has a good combine, where do you probably see him? What's his ceiling in terms of rookie drafts?
Yeah, I think you're going to be disappointed if you want Roman Wilson to be your wide receiver 1. In reality, he's probably a wide receiver 3, both in the NFL and on your fantasy team. He could play inside and outside, but to me, he projects like a slot receiver, and that's fine. Guys make a lot of money being NFL slot receivers. He could be the next Michael Thomas, for all we know. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that there's always that possibility. You get into a good spot and good things can happen. I like what I saw from Roman Wilson, and a lot of knocks on him are have a lot of targets. He didn't catch a whole lot of passes. He played exactly like the Michigan offense asked him to play. Michigan wide receivers, they're big, they're physical. And when someone says, name one good Michigan wide receiver, hey, Nico Collins, go check out what he did last year. And, Red, I do want to just touch on your J.J. McCarthy pick. I loved it at the 109. If I could get J.J. McCarthy landing spot dependent at the 109, I'm going to take him. I think he has some of the best pocket presence in the class. He's not skittish at all back there. I actually think that is the one trait that he has that is better than Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams holds on to the ball too long. I think he has 33 fumbles in his career as a starting quarterback. Not good. And, J.J. McCarthy, I love that pick at the 109. If he goes to the Vikings, like a lot of people are speculating, sign me up.
Yeah, I agree with you. Go ahead.
Sorry. To piggyback off of what you were just saying about JJ, under pressure, he has a completion percentage of 71.2%. That's excellent. You want your quarterbacks to be able to handle the pressure. And going back to Caleb Williams, when you're looking at intermediate throws, aka the throws that are helping you move the ball down the field. He was responsible for 39 sacks this year, or 39 pressures, excuse me.
Yeah, not great.
That is something, if you can't handle the pressure, and especially if you're going to be going to these teams early in the draft that don't have a great offensive line.
What, like you mean like the Chicago Bears?
Or the Commanders.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
To me, Caleb Williams needs to go to a team that is a veteran team that needs that young quarterback to come in and give him a boost. Caleb Williams cannot be the start over quarterback for a team. I don't think that's going to be beneficial for him. And I don't think that's going to be beneficial for whatever team drafts him. I think he needs to go somewhere and sit for a year, to be honest with you. We could say that about all of these quarterbacks getting drafted. Remember when they do that?
That's right.
What's that?
I just said Drake May because that's how I think Drake May.
Yeah, I mean, Drake May, he would benefit from a year of starting as well. I think all these guys really would benefit from that, to be honest with you. There's nothing wrong with having a quarterback sit for a year. Let an older vet, let a Josh McCown come in and get beat up, and you could learn from the sidelines.
He's the new quarterbacks coach, I think, and was it Minnesota? He just got hired today.
He is, yeah. I saw that. So he's not going to be taking any snaps with them soon.
No, unfortunately.
All
right. So recapping the end of this second round after Owen Wilson, we had Adnan Mitchell at the 2-6, Bucky Irving, Blake Corum at the 2-7 and 2-8, Jatavian Saunders at the 2-9, Jalen Polk at the 2-10, a little surprising there. Jalen Wright at the 2-11, and Audric Estime at the 2-12. Drew, we had kind of discussed the second round being the sweet spot for running backs, whether there was going to be one the first round or not. Does 7 running backs in the second round surprise you?
Not too much. No, I mean, these are kind of the guys I expected to come off the board. I love the Estime pick at 212. I had him right after Bucky Irving, so I like that pick quite a bit. But no, I mean, I think that this is kind of the sweet spot here in the second round. It's going to be a lot of fun to attack the running backs, and a lot can change once the combine and the NFL draft happens, and we get a better feel of what the NFL thinks of this. I was just more annoyed that I had to pick after Chris in the third round because I knew that meant I had no chance of getting Malachi Corley. I knew exactly what this man was doing before he ever did it, and I cannot stand him for it.
I thought you were going to take him in the second there, Drew.
I still got Bucky over him, but if Rhett would have asked me the same question that he asked everybody else about the combine, Malachi Corley and one other receiver that hasn't been picked yet. I don't want to talk across the board, but one other receiver that hasn't been picked yet along with him are two guys that are back in wide receiver ones for me that I'm just looking for like some excuse to move them up because I really like their game. And so those are two guys, Malachi Corley and one other guy that I'll talk about once he gets picked. Are two guys that I like quite a bit. And it serves you right, Chris. I'm so glad Mike broke your heart. I know that you hated that pick. So that's exactly what you get.
Mike, you broke Chris's heart with that third round pick. So tell me, Ben Sinnott, tight end 3 off the board. Third round, is he rising? Why you have him in the third round? Was a little earlier than I was expecting, to be honest.
So admittedly, Ben Sinnott is my tight end 2 in the class. And that's no disrespect to JT Sanders. I'm not saying he's going to be the next Sam Laporta. I'm saying he could have a Sam Laporta type ascension where after the combine, if he gets a good landing spot, people are going to start to put some respect on his name. For the record, I considered him at 204. However, at the 204, it's all about knowing who you're drafting with. I had a feeling that he might be there at the 304 yet if I didn't take him. So I went and I got a guy who I think could be a starting running back both in the NFL and on your fantasy team. And I got my guy in the next round. If this was an actual draft, I probably would have tried to trade back into the back end of the second round, draft Ben Sinnott there, and get some additional draft capital because there's a lot of sleeper running backs in the 4th, 5th rounds and as UDFAs that I think could be something this year.
Yeah, it's a beautiful strategy. Ben Sinnott's one of those guys that I saw on tape and immediately popped.
Love him.
Guy who was actually the best, was the first team all Big 12 tight end this year over Jatavian Sanders. So people love the measurables. They love the projectability with Sanders. But if you're looking at a guy who can come in and be a day one finished product, I think Sinnott is one of those guys for sure. So, Chris, I want to bounce to you right now on this 305. It's a guy we've had a lot of discussion about. I think a guy who has a lot to prove this weekend at the combine in Javon Baker. Talk about him.
I mean, I want to hear Drew's thoughts because he really liked that Javon Baker pick. And when I picked him in our startup, I received a very generous offer for both Malachi Corley and Javon Baker. So, Drew, I appreciate Rhett bouncing the question to me there, but I would love to hear your thoughts on Javon Baker, man.
Oh, well, what did that great offer get me though? It didn't get me Javon Baker or Malachi Corley, did it? you
No,
stubborn
it did
bastard!
not.
It did not. No, it did not. I love his strength. I love how he can fight in contested catches. I love how comfortable he is going up and getting the ball. I really like to see how he shined once he transferred from Alabama. He was the other guy I didn't want to talk across the board about. Malachi Corley and Javon Baker are two guys I'll be watching closely at the combine because I want just any excuse I can get to push these guys up. I like them both quite a bit. So I did not like that pick because I was hoping one of those two guys would make it to me, but they did not. So, you live and you learn.
Yeah. As we get into the end of this third round, Jorge, there are a lot of interesting picks going on in this third round. A lot of guys who admittedly have some upside, did themselves some good at the Senior Bowl. One of them that I'm looking at is Ray Davis at the 310, which we had one pick before that, Bo Nix. How do you feel about Ray Davis? I know he's a little bit older.
Yeah, so he's a little bit older, not as great at pass blocking, but again, I want these, especially we're talking third round. I want explosive. I want explosive in every round. I want chasing upside. I don't want to think about limitations. I want to take it for all these guys have. And he's right there, with number 4 in breakaway run percentage. He's very good when yards after contact per attempt. He's great in the receiving game, 1.36 yards per route run. He's an older guy, but third round, give me some upside here. I don't see what's wrong with taking him at this point.
I love the Ray Davis pick for the record. Love it.
Yeah.
Has nothing to do with me being a Kentucky fan. I just
Your
happen to
bias
love
is
the
showing.
So recapping this third round really quickly, Xavier Legette at the 3-1, Malachi Corley at the 3-2, Marshawn Lloyd at the 3-3, Ben Sinnott 3-4, Javon Baker 3-5, Michael Penix 3-06, Tez Walker at the 3-7, Ricky Pearsall 3-8, Will Shipley and Ray Davis at the 3-9 and 3-10, Bo Nix at the 3-11, and then at the 3-12 we have Spencer Rattler. So guys, I want to go ahead and touch on the end of this third round. In the first mock we did with the guys, Mike Ash and all them, Bo Nix was a first round guy. In this draft, he is now a late third round guy. So let's go ahead and ask the question. Between now and then over the past month, Tyler, what's changed with Bo Nix?
I think people are kind of seeing him as a lot of people are talking about him as more of a system and a backup quarterback, and there's not a whole lot to really argue against that. So I just think Bo Nix has a limited ceiling. The hope for him to go into a team and be their franchise quarterback just is kind of waning, and I feel his draft price is reflecting that.
I mean, yeah, he's one of these guys that, he had a great season, but I've also remember Bo Nix being a very different guy at Auburn as well. And we have to kind of take into account. And I'm just kind of curious, if Jaden Daniels had such a good fifth year and he is up at the 1-3 and Bo Nix is down at the 3-11, it's worth asking the question, Drew, what is the difference between a Jaden Daniels and a Bo Nix? Because we're talking about both guys that have big arms, both guys who've been very accurate, both guys who are very, very good with their legs. So why is one of them at the top of the draft after winning the Heisman and one toward the bottom of the draft after being the Heisman runner-up?
I just trust Jaden Daniels, the player, more personally, just off the film I've watched. I can't speak for everybody, but just with Bo Nix, he has the tools. He's a high-level athlete, but he struggles from what I've seen, he struggles to throw across the middle of the field, and it's just somebody that I don't trust as much if I have to pick one or the other. I'm comfortable with where Jaden Daniels went in this draft. I might have considered taking him and Drake May are in the same tier, but as far as Bo Nix, he's a guy that I'm just kind of passing on, and I'm prepared to be wrong about. I don't really want anything to do with him in that front. So I think drafters are making the right choice here.
Well, yeah, I think.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but going back to Bo Nix, a lot of his performance was on the short to intermediate throws. He wasn't really known as like the deep ball thrower that Jaden Daniels is, but when he, in the areas of the field that he threw the ball the most, he was very efficient. Now he was like ranking third amongst all these rookie quarterbacks in the Power 5. and several efficiency metrics. And you look at, going back to a system type quarterback, look, it's pretty easy when you got Troy Franklin, one of the best yards after the catch wide receivers, to take it to the house for you. If he lands in a situation like that, like a Denver Broncos, where they, Sean Payton's known for throwing the ball on these short passes and these playmakers taking it upfield. I mean, that could be a potential landing spot, as well as, again, a situation that might favor his skill set more than the others. And in the third round in a SuperFlex, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And so we're looking here at the fourth round right now. Brendan Rice, Jalen McMillan, Jamari Thrash, 3 wide receivers to start off the third round. Michael, which one is your favorite among those 3 and why?
My favorite is my pick at the 4-4, but I like Brendan Rice the most out of those 3, to be honest with you. And, let's forget the fact that he's Jerry Rice's kid. He's a good wide receiver in his own right. He's big. He's physical. He's not the fastest guy. Good hands. He can kind of shed some contact a little bit. Not a big yak guy per se. I like Jalen McMillan. He doesn't run through contact very well after the catch. That's the only concern I have with him. He's pretty slender as well. And Jamari Thrash is good. He still needs some time to develop, I think. But all 3 of these guys are going to be great 4th-round picks. Guys, you're probably going to throw in the taxi anyway. And like I always tell everybody, look, if you're starting guys that are in the 4th round of your rookie draft this upcoming year, you have to probably reevaluate how you built your roster, because we got some problems.
I mean, fair enough. But although I will say this, is that somehow last year I was able to get Jaden Reed in the 4th round of a rookie draft. But once again, that was just a matter of knowing my draft room as well with that.
That's a good deal right there. I mean,
when I saw it, I actually traded up right there to get that, because there was no way I was going to pass up a guy with 2nd round draft capital at that point. So going through the end of this 4th round as we wrap up this first mock draft, since we're going to have time for a little bit more tonight. At the 4-4, Cody Schrader, which Michael said he loves. Malik Washington at the 4-5, one of my favorite sleeper wide receivers in this draft. Frank Gore Jr. at the 4-6. Drew Isaiah Davis at the 4-7, an FCS guy, a high production guy, a guy that I saw on tape and didn't necessarily impress me with how fast he was. But this late, you got to take a chance on the upside. So what do you like about him?
Yeah, I mean, the long speed's not there by any means, but he was extremely productive. I like his patience on his tape. His pass protection is something that isn't always a check mark for a lot of guys coming in as rookies, but I think is a strength of his as well. So just some reps that I could see him earning some playing time if he does stick as a day 3 guy or an undrafted free agent, somebody that I'm okay throwing a dart throw at it in the 4th round.
Absolutely. And so to wrap up this 4th round, we had Jermaine Burton out of Alabama going at the 4-7. Johnny at the 4-8. I'm sorry. Johnny Wilson at the 4-09, 6'7". I'm simply going to say if he gets moved to tight end in the NFL, there's some sneaky value there. Speaking of tight ends, we have Cade Stover at the 4-10. Dylan Lobb at the 4-11. And then Dallin Holker with this tight end premium at the 4-12. So let's go ahead and let's just ask the question. At the 4-11, Dylan Lobb, Jorge, he's one of these guys that is a high production guy, did a lot of very good stuff in terms of pass catching and everything in his final season at New Hampshire, played a little bit of slot. Pass catchers are always going to find a spot in the NFL, huh?
I mean, think Danny Woodhead when you think of Dylan Lobb. I think that's probably a pretty apt comp there. Like you said, the receiving pass catchers, what you just said is spot on.
Yeah. So, all right. So that wraps up that first draft. So, Mike, I want to go ahead and ask you. You are a guest of honor over here tonight. What was the most surprising pick in this draft for you overall?
Let's see. For me, I don't know. Probably, I think Lab McConkey went. Sorry, Jorge, just a little bit earlier.
That's fine.
That I'd be taking him right now, but everything else is kind of falling into place for the most part. To be honest with you, right now I just feel like we're not getting any super. Like I did a mock last weekend. Somebody took Jaden Daniels, the 101. Was not me. But there's not really anything else that stands out incredibly surprising, to be honest with you. We'll start to see some running backs sneak into the first round after the draft, I think, more consistently, though.
Yeah, absolutely. So, guys, as we go ahead and start to we have a little bit of time, so we're going to go ahead and start up on a second mock draft in a little bit. So, just let's go ahead and what's that?
Just stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned. The show will go on. We promise.
Well, Rhett, what was your surprise draft pick here? You asked Mike, what's yours?
I mean, whenever I was sitting there and you took Ladd at 111, who was a guy that I was really high on, I also thought that was a little bit high for that. But I'm going to go ahead and say that late in the second round, I thought Jalen Polk was probably going to be a little bit lower. And at the 3-1, I mean, I've never been much of a Xavier Legette guy at all throughout this draft process. So here at the 301, I know that he's run really fast. I also saw a guy who wasn't very productive through his first 3 years of college and had one final season where he broke out in a big way. So for me, it was an interesting play right there. So I thought Xavier Legette in that spot was very interesting at the 301 because I'm not sure once we get there that is going to be that's going to be the case. But as we're going ahead, we're going to set up the second mock draft right now, guys. And let me see here. Okay. And as we share this screen and we see all these picks occupy, and then we see a little bit of a shakeup here where Chris Battistow decides he's going to be the one.
Get away from me, Chris.
I was like, I'm gonna pick Corley again.
Get away from me, man. I'm in the Corley zone now.
Yeah.
I love it. I was gonna pick him in the second, and then Baker in the third. Now we kind of know like who is high on who. I wonder how much of this draft is going to change from the first draft. But it should be another fun one. I'm looking forward to the combine starting. Then we get into free agency, which is also going to affect the value of some of these rookies. But we're getting close, man. We're in the nitty gritty.
So are we gonna drop that second link in the chat so that way people can go ahead and get into it if they want to?
Yeah.
Do we have everybody here on the stream in the chat in the draft?
I think it's just Bowers got to hop in there.
Just having some technical difficulties over here, and then I will be right there.
Am I not in there? That's so weird.
Yeah, I think
is that not true?
I believe Jamie's trying to bring his pantsless party into the second mock draft tonight, which is interesting. So we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, he's at the 102. His pants are off. He's ready.
Oh man,
one spot left for Mr. Bauer.
Yeah, I don't know why. It's just not. All right, let me try.
It's so weird because on my phone it shows I'm the 101, but I don't see that on your board there. Am I not in the right room?
No, you're good. It's just not all the way. Yeah, he's got to scroll over. Yeah. All right, we're good to go. You guys ready? I'm gonna start it.
I don't have the 101.
5-second pick clock. All right, 5-second pick clock. So it's gonna be a high stress situation. I want to see how you all handle it. Okay, ready?
I love it. I love it.
You're on the clock first. Or hey, 5 seconds, man. You better get that itchy trigger finger.
I'm ready. Don't worry, I got it. We're good.
You did it.
Brett, there's my biggest surprise of the draft. So you don't have to ask me.
Jorge, explain yourself already. Is Jane Daniels your quarterback one, or are you just going crazy right now? What's happening?
Yeah, he's my quarterback one. Like you put him on a bad team with a bad offensive line, guess what? He can evade pressure. He can get upfield. You mentioned, or I forget who mentioned, like he takes hits. Like, yeah, you show me the highlight reel of the 6 hits he took last year. Okay, well, show me all the other highlight reels of him evading and being elusive and getting away from pressure. I think you're going to see that outnumbers those hits quite a bit. And you like the accuracy downfield. You like the accuracy and the performance under pressure, and that's what really matters to me. And everything else just kind of fills in when you look at his stats and what he can do.
Now, I am going to say this, Jorge, is that I watched a lot of Jaden Daniels over this past 2 years, and I think there are going to be people that agree with me when say there are times where he just holds on to that ball a little bit too long. Does that concern you?
No. We're talking about fantasy, right? I don't care from an NFL standpoint if he gets sacked. I care about him getting the rushing yards. I care about him getting the deep balls to to his
Pressure
receiver.
to sack ratio has been something that's been, relatively reliable though for quarterbacks. It's very interesting because I agree with you, Jorge, but it's a very interesting dynamic to kind of consider whenever you look at the pressure to sack ratio for Jaden Daniels. It's definitely
there's
a question
so
worth
many
asking.
variables with that.
Well,
There
you
is
go
absolutely
into
no. There is.
I mean,
Drew,
you
the
go
clock
into-
Drew, you're on the
just went out
clock.
on Drew. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
You want Caleb? Caleb? Yeah, there you go.
there it is.
It said time was up on your screen, but on my screen it said I had like 20 seconds left. I was just hanging out because I had the easiest pick possible. I was just letting the conversation happen, in the background because my pick was already made the second that it made it to me. I couldn't believe that I could get Caleb Williams at the 104. So that's my 101. Like my tier one, my tier one in my dynasty rankings is always who are the players I'm comfortable taking at the 101, and in SuperFlex. In this format, my tier one is one player, and it's the guy I got at 104, so I'm good with that.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is I just need to keep asking Jorge because his quarterback, I guess, scouting over the course of this draft has been unbelievable. He's been playing that Silky Johnson role, player hater of the year, on Drake May. So Jorge, go ahead. I'm going to give you the stage. Drake May, what's your beef, man?
Look, what does he do for fantasy that's exciting? Yes, he has some volume, yes, but he played at the ACC. In the ACC, like he passed the ball a lot. He had a lot of passing volume. I will say that under pressure, his adjusted completion percentage is pretty decent, especially with 90 attempts under pressure. You look at pressures allowed, the sacks that he's responsible for. That's another big one. 30 at pressures allowed when you're talking about intermediate throws. You mentioned Jaden Daniels holding onto the ball too much. Well, in situations where he's responsible for moving this offense down the field, he only had 15. I mean, that's kind of like one of the lowest ones you could have for a quarterback last year. So I'm not really as concerned as far as the pressures is concerned because I just don't see it as much, or at least I did not see it last year with Jaden Daniels. Yeah. If that answers you, Drake May, also some Jaden Daniels thrown in there.
Yeah. And guys, this draft is it's already off the rails with Jaden Daniels at the 101. People decided to go crazy. I mean, Xavier Worthy at the 106. Michael, I'm going to go ahead and ask you, what kind of performance at the combine would it take and what kind of draft capital would it take for Xavier Worthy to make it this high up a draft board once these fantasy drafts start rolling post NFL draft?
He'd have to be a first-round pick, but the problem is I don't see him being more than a wide receiver 3 on an NFL team just with the way he plays. I do just want to make one mention of what Jorge is saying. What exciting things does Drake May do? Jorge, Drake May is actually a good runner too. Let's not forget about that. He has 1,200 career rushing yards for a guy that's 6'5". He doesn't look like he should have 1,200 career rushing yards in 2 years of starting. And he also has some pretty trash wide receivers. He's not throwing it to Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. His best receiver is a tight end, Bryson Nesbitt, who isn't that great. He's a mid tight end, as the youths like to say. So I think you're being a little too hard on Drake May. He's going to look great in a Commander's uniform. And then you have
to. He's not. Don't you put that hex on me. Don't you put that hex on us.
I am putting that hex on you.
He's boring.
Shia LaBeouf got the deal of the draft. Well, I mean, second deal of the draft. I got the deal at Caleb at 4, but Odunze.
I thought about it. I thought about it long and hard, but for me, Odunze's a fade if he doesn't go to Miami and get a left-handed quarterback because the spin from the ball from the right-handed quarterback is going to come out weird. I don't know if he's going to be able to read it properly.
Rome Odunze would benefit from not having Michael Penix Jr. as a quarterback.
I agree. 100%.
If he goes to the Giants, are we still high on him with Daniel Jones throwing the ball?
I'm going to say this is that he goes into the Giants. He's the wide receiver 1 immediately.
Sure.
So Daniel Jones or not, the bottom line is whenever you're making these drafts, volume is going to matter. And so for me, whether he ends up a New York Giant or whether he ends up a Kansas City Chief, I mean, those are two very different extremes you're looking at right there. but you would love him in both of those cases for very, very different reasons. Not saying that Dunze is going to fall to KC, but like I'm saying, a good quarterback situation versus a poor quarterback situation with bad receivers. I mean, it kind of ends up washing out in some ways. So let's go ahead and recap this first round because we have a very interesting one with Jaden Daniels at the 101, Marv at the 102, Neighbors at the 103, Caleb at the 104, Drake at the 105, Xavier Worthy 1-6, Bowers, Adunze, Thomas, McCarthy, pretty consistent tonight at that 1-9, 110 range, Troy Franklin, and I just went ahead and did it. I'm going to go ahead and Jonathan Brooks at the 112 because, like I said, I think he is a guy that
RB1.
ultimately he's my RB1. And he's going to be my RB1. And it's simple as this. Once that knee heals, and I don't care about ACL injuries anymore, because I saw Cam Akers come back and be pretty dang good off of a torn Achilles for a little while there. Modern medicine has come so far.
Until he tore the other one, right?
Until he tore the other one, yes.
We don't have to talk about that.
But that being said, modern medicine has come so far, and you can tell me that he tore an ACL. I saw Tyjae Spears enter the NFL draft coming off of a career with 2 torn ACLs and average 4.5 yards a carry and catch 45 balls last year as a rookie. And is going to have a great position in the league this year. So you can go torn ACL all you want. I don't care because I think this is a guy that is too talented to be ignored in terms of draft capital when it's all said and done.
I think we got guys dug in on Lab McConkey and Roman Wilson. It don't matter where they are in the second round, back of the first round. you find Lad in the you find Jorge in the Lad territory. You find Jamie in the Roman Wilson territory. They're going to take them no matter what. They got the little sticky note off draft day. Roman Wilson, no matter what. Lad McConkey, no matter what. I guess for me in this instance, it's going to be A.D. Mitchell, no matter what. At this point, I don't really know if I'm on board with the CeeDee Lamb comparisons I've been seeing, even though I get kind of where it's coming from just in terms of play styles. But I do like A.D. Mitchell here, where the board is falling.
So Tyler, go ahead and tell me. We haven't talked to you in a while. Between Lad and Roman, who do you prefer and why?
I think I'm going to roll with Roman Wilson. Just from what I've seen with his performance in the All-Star games, that's been very impressive. It was the wide receiver, he was the top target for the national championship team, and he's done nothing but impress every step of the way. So I'm really liking Roman Wilson and Lad McConkey. The injuries scare me a bit.
Chris Battistell, take lock of the year. Malachi Corley, is he just going to be your second round guy no matter where you pick this year or what in that second round?
Just depends on if I'm in the draft with him or not.
Yeah, no, don't flatter yourself, Drew. No, it depends really who's there, where I'm drafting. I'm gonna take Braylon Allen, Jonathan Brooks, these kind of guys before Malachi Corley. If Malachi Corley's there at the 2-7, I'm gonna grab him, man. He's productive in college. If you played like Mike C2C or any kind of college fantasy, you've seen what he can do on the field. Just a yak monster, a guy who's going to create magic when he gets the ball in his hands. So give that to me over a lot of these. The draft is full of these big-bodied, prototypical NFL wide receivers. Give me the guy that can do it all in Malachi Corley. There's been some stuff on Twitter where he could be the wide receiver that ends up, back end of rookie first. So taking him here in the second, taking him there in the third in February, as of right now, seems like a value to me.
And guys, it's just so fascinating right now that as I look through this board, pretty much the same players as we had in the last draft, but due to different draft slots, guys, this is a completely different looking board this time around. Jorge, I got what's changed outside of the draft slots? Are people just trying to diversify or what? I don't know.
Absolutely. That's exactly what this is. I mean, come on, you got to diversify your bonds if you watched the Chappelle Show from back in the day.
This is the second Chappelle Show reference of the night, so I'm here for it completely.
Trey Benson making it to the back of the second round. I thought that was a great value. I think the only reason he didn't make it that far last draft is because Mike was a little earlier in the second round. I think he took him there too. But I love Trey Benson, so I love to see that back. I think that was a great value at the back of the second.
And speaking of great values at the back of the second, I know we just kind of poo-pooed him a little bit, but if you're going to get a guy who has a chance to be a first-round pick at the end of the second round in Michael Penix, then you're going to go ahead and I'm going to take that.
Penix.
No, you said speaking of great values, and then you said Penix. So those two things don't mesh. That's not.
This is in Amsterdam, right?
Does not compute, right?
Great value Penix.
All right, so here we are. To recap that second round, we had Lad McConkey, Roman Wilson, Bucky Irving, Eddie Mitchell, Keon Coleman falling to the middle of the second. Braylon Allen 2-6, Malachi Corley 2-7, Blake Corum 2-8, Bo Nix, Trey Benson, Jatavian Sanders, and Michael Penix rounding out the second round. And moving into the third, once again, Jalen Wright, Jorge. This is your guy. So tell me, you have him as your RB2. I know you discussed it a little bit pre-show, but go ahead and put it out there. Why are you so high on him versus some of these other guys?
Well, let me preface this, very clearly. I do not pretend to be a quote unquote tape film evaluator person. I have my wheelhouse of how I like to look at players, and I stick within my wheelhouse. I will say this: from what I have watched in a lot of his games this year, this guy can do it bouncing to the outside, but he's very consistent in going to the A gaps and not being afraid to shy away from tackles. He's very elusive in the middle, going up the middle against tough defensive lines. And then we talked about earlier his breakaway run rate, his efficiency, both running the ball and receiving the ball, very elusive running back. And I think, the notion that he could be a third down back, I think he can do more than that. He's very well built. I'm very, needless to say, I'm very high on Wright.
Then I want to bounce to Michael and Tyler. I want to ask each of you right now. Michael first, who is your favorite sleeper running back in this draft class?
Let me go to the running back page here. So I'm a big Dylan Johnson fan. I've been kind of forcing Dylan Johnson in all the fourth rounds of the Dynasty Rewind Rookie Mocks, calling it non-consensual Dylan Johnson, because whether you want it to happen or not, I'm going to make sure he has ADP. I like him. There's a guy, Rasheen Ali from Marshall. He did get hurt at the Super Bowl, though. I haven't watched Dylan Lobb yet, or as I've been calling him, Dylan Lube. But there is another guy, Kamani Vidal from Troy. He was very good as well. And then just kind of looking at this year, I liked Carson Steele. I think he should have came back for another year. I'm an Isaiah Davis fan as well. And another guy who I think the NFL might like a little bit more than we might, that's Jace McClellan from Alabama. He's probably going to project as a third down back, better receiver than runner. But guys like that seem to have a shelf life. They always get kicked around. Draft him late, pick him up as UDFA. He has a big game. You ship him out for something you like better.
Yep. Tyler?
Well, seeing as Mike just named all of them, I'm going to go ahead and say I actually like watching in Will Shipley. I like his receiving ability. He's shown that over the past couple of years that he can catch the ball. Is he going to be an every down back? No, absolutely not. Is he going to be a primary runner? Nah, probably not. Is he going to be a back that gets in there on receiving downs and can get 100-ish rush attempts a year? Yeah, I think he's capable of that. So give me a guy that can be a back-end RB2, high-end RB3, and I'll roll with that and see what happens.
Right. And I'm sitting here, and I love the Will Shipley thing because, like we said, pass catchers, at the end of the day, there have been stats that have been around for years that say that a pass caught, whether it's half PPR or full PPR, just a matter of yardage. You get more yardage out of a reception than you do out of a carry. So any running back that has that pass catching upside is a guy that I'm going to be in on the end of the day. And speaking of being in on guys at the end of this third round, we talked about him a little bit earlier, but I'm going to go ahead and just close this draft out with Ray Davis because he's one of my favorite guys in this draft. That in that third round, if you have a chance to get him, it's going to be. I think he's going to be a guy that the NFL absolutely loves. So to recap this third round, go ahead.
I have to point. I can't go another segment talking about Javon Baker where he went in the third round. He has no business being that deep. That we're going to look back in 2 weeks from now and be like, what the hell was he doing going in? It was such a good value. And then Ray Davis closing it out. I'm a Kentucky guy, so of course that gets me excited. But the back end of that third round had me all sorts of hot and bothered with those 2 picks. I like that a lot.
Yeah, certainly a good one. So to close everything out, I mean, 2 mock drafts in an hour, guys. Let's go ahead. Let's go around the frames real quick. Let's go ahead and let's talk about some final thoughts real quick, starting with Michael. 2 rounds, a lot of data tonight. What's something you learned tonight that you didn't think you previously knew before?
Well, I learned that Jorge is a get your guy type dynasty player when he drafts. That's for sure. I did not know that previously. I do want to mention one other guy, Blake Watson from Memphis. I know he's going to get the Kenneth Gainwell comps because he played at Memphis. Please don't be lazy when you comp players. Just don't do helmet scouting. But legs don't stop. Great receiving back. Good burst through the line. Look for Blake Watson late in your draft. He's going to be a riser after the draft, I think. But you know what I really learned? Mock drafts, they're fun. They help you get values in case you're making trades right now. But we don't know a damn thing until after the draft.
Right, because we just saw 2 completely different things happen in the space of 20 minutes. It's unbelievable.
The mock that we did this past weekend for Monday's video, we're talking about the 3rd, 4th round. Like, man, my guy's still here. I love this guy. I love that guy. And we're all excited about these late round picks. And we're saying, buy late round picks. And then the draft happens and your actual draft happens. And you have the 4-2 and you're like, I don't want this pick. Does anybody want this? I'll take a fab dollar for the 4-2. So it's just amazing how things can change so fast.
Yeah. Chris, coming out of these 2 mocks tonight, I mean, is it safe to say that Malachi Corley is absolutely your favorite player in this draft or what?
I wouldn't say overall favorite player, but he's up there, man. He's a guy that I'm going to try to acquire a lot of in any of the rookie drafts that I am a part of, which is not many. But the ones I am in, if I have the opportunity to take them, I'm going to grab them, man.
Yeah. So, Tyler, moving into you now.
Sorry, Drew.
Any surprises? Any shockers overall? Anything else you learned different? What's going on?
I think my main takeaway was it's a good exercise. It's a good visualization. It's kind of fun that the Dynasty 365 crew just did a startup draft, and we were drafting rookie picks in our draft. And I feel pretty good. We hit it pretty hard in the 2nd round. We got a 2.5, a 2.7, a 2.8, and a 2.10. And in both of these drafts, I'm really liking these players that came away in those spots. So it's a good visualization exercise, and also it makes me feel good about something that our Dynasty crew just did.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Jorge, I need to ask you really quickly, do we have any chance, if he comes and balls out at the combine this weekend, of talking you off the Drake May ledge? Yes or no?
You never say never.
Yeah.
But
No,
balls out has to occur. I just walked into that one. Yeah, never say never. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Drew, final thoughts on your behalf, man.
I think for me right now, there's a very clear tier break within the top 7. If you're after the top 7 picks, I love the idea of trying to trade back a little bit, acquire more capital, and get some of these 2nd round picks. My tier 5 goes from my 11th overall player to my 17th overall player, and then tier 6 is 16 to 25. So if you're a maniac and you're already drafting this earlier, pre-combine, pre-NFL draft, I think that there's some value to be able to trade back, and then we'll let the NFL tell us what they think with these players here in the next coming weeks with the combine and the draft. That's what at this point that's what I'm most looking forward to, is figuring out where the NFL stands with these guys who we've been talking about for the last few weeks.
All right, before we leave, and I'm going to go ahead and direct this to Michael and Tyler. So Jamie's asking between Roman Wilson and Javon Baker, who has the best chance to have the Jaden Reed value of last year? Go ahead, Michael, you go first.
Tyler, I bet you kick it off first since I still owe you running back sleepers. How's that sound?
I really like the athleticism and the ability of Javon Baker, and that's kind of, if we're trying to talk about the Jaden Reed value, I love the athleticism of Jaden Reed and how he's just kind of a do-it-all player. So I'm going to go ahead with Javon Baker, because Roman Wilson is kind of, I don't know if he has the super high ceiling with that athleticism.
I'm going to agree with Tyler here, and I do think we should try to shy away from who's the next this, who's the next that, because Javon Baker is going to be the first Javon Baker, but Javon Baker's my
Who's
guy.
the next Puka Nacua?
Who cares? You know what? That's what I'm going to tell you about Puka Nacua. Same thing with Kyron Williams. Get me off all the Rams, except for Davis Allen. He's a screaming buy for me right now. But that being said, Javon Baker is the guy that I would pick from those two. I like Roman Wilson. And like I said in the last draft, these Michigan receivers do everything that Harbaugh asked them to do. But if you want a guy who has a chance to take a top off of defense, who can spin out of contact and be a game breaker, it is Javon Baker. And oh, by the way, his teammate Kobe Hudson, who is a 2025 prospect, is almost as good as Javon Baker is as well. So keep your eyes out for him next year.
What a way to end this mock stuff. So, Michael, I just want to go ahead and ask you as we get out of here tonight. First off, plug the latest and greatest things you have going on, whether it's inside or outside of the fantasy football community.
Yeah, so, outside of the fantasy football community, I got a new job in October, and I'm loving it, which is great because now I have time to work on the show sheet at work. Fantastic. But check us out on YouTube. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, everywhere you can find a podcast. And, hey, you know what? Sunday, the second our live stream starts on the NFL draft, that is when we will be releasing our 2024 rookie draft guide. So look out for that. We're lowering the pricing this year for everybody. So going to make it more accessible to everybody. It is not a physical copy, just so you know, it is in PDF form. But hey, you got a phone, you got a computer, you got a tablet, you can find it on there. So, and if you want to just take a browse and see what else we got, payup.com/Dynasty Rewind. You can see kind of the outline of what the guide looks like from last year. So you know what it's going to be looking like this year, but it's going to be even bigger than it was last year. So.
All right. I want to go around the frames one more time before we leave, starting with Drew and then ending with Michael. I want everybody to give me one potential hot take for the NFL Combine this weekend.
One potential hot take, and you're making me go first. Oh, man.
100%. No pressure.
On the spot.
Let's see. I'm going to say that one of Javon Baker or Malachi Corley ends up entering the top 6 wide receiver conversation after this weekend.
Ooh.
Jorge?
Price is going up, Drew.
I'm the one raising the damn price. I'm hustling backwards over here.
Drake May is the best performing quarterback at the Combine.
There it is. I love it. We made it.
Wait, isn't he the only quarterback throwing?
Phoenix is throwing. I think.
Well, if you can call what he does throwing, then yes, he is throwing.
Phoenix throwing is just going to raise Drake May even more.
Tyler?
Hot take. All right. Malik Neighbors goes absolutely nuts and really makes the conversation of, oh, should we actually be drafting him over Marvin Harrison Jr.?
Chris?
Someone breaks Chris Jones's combine record, and we see 2 wieners this week.
2 wieners.
No, I'm going to say the 40-time record gets beat by a corner.
By who? By a corner.
Ooh, I got a corner taking it.
All right. So before we're going to go ahead and throw it off to Mike, I'm going to go ahead and say this. My hot take for the weekend is that you're going to see Brian Thomas running the high 4.3s this weekend and solidify his place as a wide receiver 3 in this draft.
Wide receiver 3?
Yeah, well, actually, my hot take was close to that. It's just looking at how Brian Thomas plays. He makes a lot of NFL catches, both feet inbounds. So I think that at the Combine, I was going to say he's going to do enough to start to ascend and bring him up to the 103, 104 range instead of the 108, 109.
Ooh.
Yeah. I like Brian Thomas a lot.
Yeah, same. You and I, we're good friends because I've been a Brian Thomas guy this entire process.
He's awesome.
So, guys, that's our show. Just remember to follow all of these people around us on Twitter, starting with Michael at Rewind CEO, Chris Battistel at FF Chris B, Jorge Edwards at Jorge Edwards, Drew at Drew3MR, and Tyler Heil at FF Tyler Heil, and myself at R Manual Sports. Guys, we had a blast. You guys all crushed it tonight. As usual, to all our watchers and listeners, we're grateful for the opportunity that you give us to get into your ear, to your eyes and ears on these Wednesday nights. We love you. For everybody around me, Mike, Chris, Tyler, Jorge, Drew, I am Rhett Manuel.